Thanks again for everyone for joining us today. I'm pleased to have Greg with us. Greg is founder and CEO of Membrion. Um, Water is such a scarce resource, and Greg, has his PhD in chemical engineering and just saw a very unique opportunity and to address some really important issues around water and actually with what I would describe as like a unique and it appears to be very lucrative business model for ways to address some of the harsh wastewater that occurs in industrial applications. So either way, just wanted to pass it over to Greg here in a minute. Just as a reminder, we're going to have Greg provide some opening remarks, overview of the company, and then I will ask some questions as well. And you guys, audience, thanks again for joining us today. Please use the chat feature if you have questions along the way, and we'll get to as many of those questions as we can during during the course of the next 45 or so minutes. So with that, I will turn it over to Greg, and I'll disappear for a while, Greg, as you give those remarks, and then rejoin.
Sounds great.
So
Awesome. Thanks, David.
yeah, thank you.
Great. Well, excited to be here with everyone this morning, and yeah, thanks again for the patience as I was dealing with the login challenges. Let me get my screen all set. Okay, I think you should be able to see my pitch deck at this point. So,
Yep, we do.
fantastic. Okay, great. Well, as David mentioned, my name's Greg Newbloom. I'm the founder and CEO of Membrion. Really excited to be here with you today. Fundamentally, Membrion makes the world's first ceramic membrane capable of desalinating harsh industrial wastewater sources. So fundamentally, we are transforming toxic waste into valuable resources under a hardware as a service business model with no green premium. So for those of you who aren't maybe as intimately aware, critical minerals are at the core of every single modern technology that we leverage. And whether you are extracting these minerals from the ground in a mining process, or you are converting them into something useful, a useful good, all of that requires dissolving these metals and minerals in strong acids and oxidizers. And at the end of the day, that's going to generate a waste stream that is hazardous, toxic, and extremely complicated to dispose of. And so the status quo for this disposal process is a combination of chemical lime, trucking, and incineration. So effectively, facilities will dump a bunch of lime into their metal wastewater that will precipitate out into a sludge. That sludge is then scooped and trucked off-site to an incineration facility. At that incineration facility, after all of the water is then removed, the ash that's left over is then combined in with concrete, and that concrete is sent to a landfill. And we hope and pray that those metals don't then leach back out into our groundwater, and no surprise, they do. And so this process, as you can imagine, is extremely expensive, emits a lot of GHG in the greenhouse gases in the process. And ultimately, fundamentally, we are wasting the water, the acid, and the critical minerals that are involved. So there are tens of thousands of facilities that are spending 6 to 7 figures annually dealing with these acidic metal-bearing waste streams. And Membrion offers a fundamentally different approach. We're able to separate the metals from the wastewater, and we return both as reusable. So you get clean water and valorized metals. And we do this using a process called electroceramic desalination. So we retrofit a facility with our ECD equipment, but we run it on site as a service for the facilities, meaning that there's no upfront capex or installation costs involved. So facilities pay a simple price per treated gallon, and that cost of that service is at least 20% less than what they're paying for their non-circular status quo today. And so the average facility that is adopting our ECD technology is going to generate at least $150,000 a year in savings and reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by at least 90%. The status quo for this market is a combination of chemicals, equipment, service providers, and trucking logistics that spread across lots of different markets. You might think, mining, semiconductors, batteries, electroplating. In total, industrial wastewater that's applicable to our technology is worth about $80 billion. These, in particular, these kind of really harsh wastewater streams that Membrion is targeting is a $19 billion serviceable available market to us at our current price point. And then initially within all of this, we are focused on 765 US-based facilities that are currently trucking acidic metal wastewater offsite for disposal. So this is a subset of this industry that is not doing the chemicals and precipitation on site. They do everything. They just truck liquids offsite every day. There's about, within this market, there's about a $700 million opportunity for Membrion. To be clear, metal wastewater is certainly an area that we are focused on, but it's not the only multi-billion-dollar wastewater market that can benefit from circularity. It's just the one that Membrion is focused on first. We leverage asset financing to deploy these ECD systems at customer sites. So the average piece of equipment is going to cost at least $350K to deploy, and it'll generate about $1 of ARR per dollar of CapEx. So it's ensuring typically we'll see less than an 18-month payback on this equipment under our financing. These projects are highly profitable. So today we operate about 52% gross margin. We've got line of sight to 84% gross margin over the next 4 years. And that's really primarily due to the automation as we get these systems, more of these systems in the field. Initially, we're focusing on 3-year contracts with facilities because we are a new technology. It's a new offering within the market. But in the long run, we should be able to lock down 7 to 10-year contracts, which can be more standard as we continue to build our reference base. We launched, as a company, Membrion launched our MVP in late 2021. And so within that, we've spent the last couple of years piloting, and this year we're on track to finish the year with about 1.5 million in ARR. We have one commercial project that is currently operating, one that is commissioning this week as we speak. And then we have a third one that is coming online next month. So we'll finish the year with 3 launch commercial projects. 2 of those 3 are under a service model. One is under a traditional CapEx sale. Our 2-person sales team has generated a pipeline that is bursting at the seams. We've got more than 30 projects worth more than 10 million in ARR that are coming through. And all of this traction that we've had has generated a lot of attention for Membrion over the last 18 months, including being named to the top 100 green tech company by Time Magazine, a top innovator by the World Economic Forum, and then a handful of awards within the water industry as well. Our first full deployment, first full commercial deployment is with a multinational semiconductor facility. And there we are treating their copper wastewater that is otherwise being trucked off site for third-party disposal. So this particular facility generates about 100,000 gallons of copper wastewater every year, and they're paying upwards of $6 per gallon to dispose of that. Fundamentally, even though we are able to save this facility hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, at the end of the day, that is a rounding error for most semiconductor fabs. And so really what drove this project with this facility is the fact that it's space constrained. They have a tank that when that tank fills up, if that truck doesn't arrive on time, they have to shut down production because there's nowhere to store that wastewater. And that's expensive. That impacts top line revenue. And is unacceptable from an operation standpoint. And so they had a lot of very complex operational strategies for how to deal with these space constraints. And Membrion was able to come in, and while saving them money on their operating costs, we also delivered a 4x increase in their treatment, in their site capacity for this wastewater. And so That provides a completely eliminated the operational challenges, allows them to be able to do the work that really matters for the site, and they saved money and they reduced greenhouse gas emissions, all with no upfront cost to the company. And like, this semiconductor facility is not unique in these struggles, especially in the space constraints. There are hundreds of companies worldwide that generate this exact same copper wastewater stream, and face similar capacity issues. And so it's a great initial case study for us. As I mentioned, we're about 5 months into operating with this facility. Fundamentally, all of the, why we're able to kind of go into these areas that others historically haven't been able to go really comes down to the technology itself. So the circular approach is really unlocked by electroceramic desalination. We call it ECD for short. The first kind of component of this innovation is a membrane technology. So we're the first ones to figure out how to make a ceramic membrane that could desalinate water. And that really requires making pores that are small enough to be able to desalinate water. And with ceramics, that's been historically been very challenging. Ceramic membranes are known for their extreme durability, but really, and they've existed at other larger size scales for many decades, and have been very promising there. So really, we're kind of taking that knowledge, that expertise, that value proposition, and we're bringing it down into a different size scale of filtration. The second component of it that's really important within this value proposition is that we're using electricity to pull dissolved metal ions out of the wastewater into a highly concentrated stream for valorization. And then we're leaving the reusable water behind. And this is really different than a traditional desalination process. For those of you who are familiar with reverse osmosis, you're probably familiar with a high pressure pushing water across the membrane and leaving everything else behind. This is almost the exact opposite. It's low pressure, and we're using electricity to pull contaminants across the membrane, leaving clean water behind. And then that allows us to get to very high water recoveries, which is really important in these applications. The keys to success in treating metal wastewaters really comes down to performance durability, simple treatment train, and process adaptability. At the end of the day, these environments are extremely harsh. I mentioned the wastewater facility, the semiconductor fab we're working with. The pH is close to 0. There's 1,000 ppm of peroxide in there, chelators, particles, other things that make it really, really challenging to process. And so you have to have a membrane or a process that fundamentally can withstand those chemicals, those challenges, and that's challenging to do. Simple treatment train. In most cases, space is a premium, especially with a retrofit. And so you have to have a really simple, compact process to be able to run these and be able to maintain them effectively over long periods of time. And then it has to be adaptable to variation. Often wastewaters can swing by 40 to 60% in their level of contaminants, the types of contaminants, and your process needs to be able to handle all of that and that day-to-day variation, and that's really critical. And that's why if you look at these challenging wastewaters, what gets utilized today is chemical coagulation or offsite trucking. Those are the two options, even though there are other technologies that can effectively remove ions like evaporators, resins, electrowinners, reverse osmosis. They don't get used in these applications because they don't meet these fundamental criteria for operating in these environments. I will mention that a few months ago, we became aware of our first direct competitor, which we're actually really excited about. I think if nothing else, it shows that we're not crazy in the pursuit of these applications. Citration, coming out of MIT, is a 4-year-old spin out. They just raised their seed round. They are pre-scale up, pre-pilot. And so Membrion is, we're obviously about 4 to 5 years ahead from that standpoint, as we've got our first commercial installations up and running. But kind of excited to have that, that validation that the space that we're in, the technology that we're pursuing does have a lot of value and offers to be a game changer within the market. So Within kind of our leadership team, really it's myself. I'm a chemical engineering PhD by training, an entrepreneur by heart. Tom Mitchell, my COO, CFO's spent more than 20 years in water tech development and investment. Joined us this last year. Spent most of his career with the Danaher water business, bringing new products to market. Josh Summers joined us this last year as well. Josh as an executive at Voltea, and we brought him on as our VP of Customer Success. So he has more than 100 commercial deployments for new technologies in the water sector under his belt. So he's handling and ensuring that the service element of our brand is well maintained. On our board of directors, also a lot of experience. We have Wayne Byrne, who's seen more than 4 startup exits, 2 in the water sector, and then Sivan Zamir, who's the VP of Innovation at Xylem, which is the world's largest water treatment company. And so in this next round, we're in the process of fundraising. And so next round, really, we're looking to formally add on sales, marketing, and product experience. Right now, those are all kind of shared hats, shared positions, and we're excited to get leadership in there to help us continue to grow and build on what we've got. I think right now we've got a lot of great elements in place. I mentioned that we've got our first 3 commercial installs that are going to be online and generating revenue this year. We've got another 8 projects in contracting coming behind that, meaning that we're going through the contracting process, which really tees up all of 2025. So this year we'll finish the year with about 1.5 million in ARR. Next year that'll jump up to about 7.4. And really on track to hit above 10 million in ARR by 2026. So a lot of kind of our focus as a team is how are we 10xing over the next 2 years. We've definitely got the pipeline right now and the level of contracting to be able to support that, including multi-site offtake from major brands within the industry. And so and really, I think what's helping us towards being able to grow as fast as we are growing, and what we're seeing is moving towards a service model with no upfront costs has been incredibly helpful for reducing risks and just getting out of the budget cycle conversations that inevitably come up with large capital equipment purchases. By having reference customers has been hugely helpful for us because no surprise that a lot of people just want to talk to someone and understand how a system is working in the field. And then we think the last element is actually bringing on a formal and an experienced sales and marketing team is really going to help take us to the next level and continue to be able to grow and sustain the growth rate that we're seeing. And so it's an exciting time for the company. We are in the process of doing the fundraise. So we're raising a Series B1, 30 million in total, about 20 on the equity side, 10 on either debt or project. Still we just kicked off about a month ago, so we're looking for the lead on the round, that we do have about 5 million soft circled from our existing investors. We are targeting a year-end close so that we can make sure that we continue to be able to deploy new projects. Our debt financing is contingent on the equity closing, and so in order for us to continue executing on these projects that are in contracting, we've basically got to get our next round done. And so primary, really kind of, as I mentioned, we're kind of looking to 10x over the next 2 years. We'll hit more than 25 commercial deployments, more than 10 million in ARR. We'll increase automation and production levels as well, and that's kind of the primary thing we're looking to accomplish with the use of these funds. With that's really the bulk of my presentation. I think fundamentally, hopefully, what I've shown is that toxic waste doesn't need to end up in our waters and landfills, and that a circular approach to valorize metals and clean water is not only available, but actually less expensive than today's non-circular, non-sustainable options. Membrion's electroceramic desalination is proven, and we're on the path to SaaS-like gross margins. And with that, we hope that you'll find a way to help join us on our mission to create circularity of the world's most critical resources. So thanks for your time, and looking forward to answering any questions that come up.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah, I really appreciate that. So I always like to start out with, and feel free, obviously, Greg's put his email there. So Greg at Membrion. Uh, if you have questions, you can always reach out to him directly too. But in the interest of just this audience portion, I always love to hear, your backstory as the founder, so PhD, chemical engineering, you could take the academic path, or you could do I know this isn't your first rodeo startup wise either. So just why was this the problem that you wanted to dedicate your life to and your reputation to? And maybe just some of that personal backstory would be helpful just to kind of fill in, because that we find that founder energy is really important when people are, it helps you get through the tougher times too, right? Because you're doing something
Absolutely,
you find to be extremely important. So just
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, so for me, an engineer by training. I mentioned kind of an entrepreneur by heart. I think, I started my first company when I was 10 years old, selling snacks at my brother's baseball game. I've been finding ways to kind of do those entrepreneurial activities ever since. And I think in going to school, I got the advice of, hey, well, you like science, you like engineering, why not? Or you like math, why not do engineering? And that seemed like a very prudent decision at the time. But it wasn't until grad school where I really kind of got to reconnect with my kind of love of I think entrepreneurship is just fundamentally problem solving, and finding something that a customer who's got a pain, and finding a way to solve it. And so I had the opportunity to spin out a couple of companies as a part of my graduate school experience. And neither of the I like great learning lessons with those companies. It's very different to build a clean tech company than a snack shack at a baseball game, as it turns out. But I think fundamentally, with Membrion, it really started as a we created this really interesting new material. It had a ton of different applications. Initially, we were focused on leveraging it for batteries, and I started out just curious as to where could this go, and am I really ready to kind of give this up and go into industry or academia, and I said no, I really want to kind of see where this went, and it wasn't really until even along Membrion's journey, I had a friend who worked at a major semiconductor fab, and had this issue with copper wastewater, and they were trucking off wastewater every single day. And he asked, "Hey, could your material do something?" And I think for me, one of the kind of resonating points was just the ridiculous. Like once I started to dig into this trucking problem, the ridiculousness of how much time, energy, money we spend moving toxic waste on our freeways through our communities, only to have it leach back into our groundwater at the end of the day anyway. It just felt insane to me. And I think that that's really where initially it was curiosity and just I love problem solving, and this was a great problem to tackle. And then eventually it turned into there has to be a better way than this. And it turns out there is. And so I think that that's the fun part now is we're getting this actually deployed, and we are actually able to show, hey, yeah, there is a better way. Now it's it's just kind of continuing to ramp up that passion that this really is a solution to a big problem.
Yeah, yeah. No, thanks. That's yeah. Yeah. I remember when we first met. At least I'll speak for myself. I was unaware of how we were dealing with these issues, and you're right. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, the model has evolved, since we invested, a couple years ago now. I
Yep.
think the water as a service, as we kind of talk about it internally, that's been a kind of a newer revelation. Can you maybe, I don't know, walk through the evolution of and how you found now what appears to be some really good product market fit with your offering? Just maybe how
Yeah.
it's evolved over time and some of the lessons you've had as you've tried to develop the model to fit that kind of intractable problem that's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, as a kind of history of the company, we initially, we had a new membrane technology. We were scientists who knew membranes, and so we thought, hey, let's make membranes and sell membranes, and that sounds great. And we found that, just getting we weren't a drop-in product, so it was never easy to get things in the hands of customers. And so I think that, even as close as 2 years ago, when we first met, we were focused on selling modules, which were easier to integrate into a system, and we had partnerships set up to be able to do that. And what we ended up, I mean, for better or for worse, there's maybe a couple different things that ended up really reshaping and shifting us towards the service model. The first was that we were doing work directly with end users, and what we found is it was just super clunky to then hand off a relationship that we'd spent the last 12 months building with individuals to say, okay, you're gonna buy our technology from this other person, and you're not gonna talk to us again, right? You're gonna now work with this other company, and they're gonna deploy it, and they're gonna service it, and they're gonna do all that. And that handoff, just like it was weird, it was clunky, it didn't work very well. And so we kind of started looking at, okay, well, is there a better way to deploy this? And the second thing that we had is, one of our major partners went bankrupt about a year ago, and that really like forced us to, like, we millions in kind of commitments from them for deployments, and all of a sudden all that was gone. And so that was really a like, okay, what are we going to do? We were supposed to be ramping our revenue and growing, and we had a path to do that. And so it really forced us to take a step back and listen to our customers and say, okay, well, how are we going to do this? How are we going to overcome kind of the biggest pushback we got from customers was, your brand new membrane. There is no alternative in the market for us to replace you with if you go under. How can we ensure that you're going to be around in 2 years when we need new membranes? And so we basically said, well, what if we just deploy this as a service? And once we started recognizing that, like, oh, actually, the value, what people are paying today to dispose of this wastewater, and the value that we can provide, it's like there is a ton of room for us to be able to operate, even if, and we basically said, even if we just had to put someone on site full time to run this, and we had to be swapping our membranes all the time, it would still be a profitable business. And we said, well, there's probably something here then. And so it's taken us about, kind of, we made the pivot maybe a little less than a year ago. And the traction has just been wildly different over the last 12 months with what we've gotten through. Customers really, resonating with this approach. And so, it's been great.